Welcome all. We get a two-game NFL slate here for Monday Night Football. I was actually shocked to see the Raiders on Monday Night Football yesterday when I was looking for best ball stuff, and I'm like, oh my goodness, the Raiders and Falcons will take each other on. You also have the Bears and Vikings. There's a few defenses here that do struggle greatly. AP, how are you doing today, man? And hopefully everything's been well with you. It's been a while.
Yeah, things are excellent coming off an awesome Sunday. I mean, I'm more than double my money, and I had like max exposure to Amari Cooper. I had a ton of King Henry. Those two definitely held me back, but it was a good day. Not as good as our boy, the Cake Boss in Discord. Sean Smith, Millie Maker winner yesterday. I mean, the lineup was just absolutely phenomenal. Jared Goff. I mean, Ramondre Stevenson was in there, but Chase Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brian Thomas Jr., Devontae Adams, Strange, Sam Laporta, and Broncos defense. A lot of those plays I do the NFL playbook over here, had like Broncos defense ranked number one. The script was perfect. He hit the nail on the head every single where. And yeah, so shout out to him. Huge congrats. Monster 263 point score yesterday. So that Bills Lions game was just nuclear. I mean, that thing was absolutely awesome. And I don't know, like Ruby, I don't know if you caught the Up the Lock show, but we spent the whole time, we talked probably too long about drones, the whole drone situation. And then the rest of the time was just absolutely spewing over that Lions game. And I'm glad it panned out the way that we thought. So, overall, it was a great Sunday.
Yeah, man, it was great to see. Obviously, the Cake Boss, good dude, Sean Smith, win that $1 million is awesome to see. One of the biggest wins I have seen in terms of a Millie Maker that large with a 17-point fantasy win. So that's awesome to see. And look, there he is.
Oh, my bad.
Baby. That's awesome, man. Congratulations, Sean. Well deserved. I'm sure. Hopefully another one. Maybe go back to back next week. That would be fun. We have a big slate tonight, though. I was actually.
Why not run it back tonight? Dude, this 2-game slate's awesome. I woke up early. I got kind of like my baseline preview done. It's a fun slate. There are a lot of routes to go. So go back to back tonight, Sean.
It is $500K to first tonight, so not quite a milli, but we do get a big prize pool here. Lots of good action. I think that the totals are very reasonable, AP. I think there's a couple talking points that we're going to get into now because we want a 45-minute show here, so I'm going to kind of try and speed things along. We do have 2 games to talk about, which will make it slightly tough, but I do want to break down this Bears-Vikings game, right? This is a game that we had, 3 to 4 weeks ago. Eberflus was still with the Bears. And they actually took them to overtime. It was a very high-scoring game. Then you just see what the Bears did last week, and it was one of the worst games, right? It was one of the worst games that you could see from that defense. I want your take on how this Bears-Vikings game is going to play out because we get a pretty large spread here, about 7.5-point spread here for the Vikings' favor in Minnesota. I mean, they looked amazing in recent weeks as well. You have Sam Darnold absolutely stepping up in that offense there. Obviously our guy, Kevin O'Connor, you got you and him, the doppelganger. Then you also have this Falcons team that is sliding. I mean, they are in the midst of one of their worst stretches of the season. They're going against a Raiders team that is just awful against the pass as well. I mean, I know your Chiefs were taken down to the wire by them, but they lose Max Crosby, which is a big deal to their defense as well. What's your take on these 2 games here, AP?
Yeah, first thing, can you slide the lineups page over just so that I can see the goods here? And I mean, we hopped right on and we just started this puppy, getting it started on time. Do we want to go position by position or game by game for these 2 game slates?
I just want your blanket overview real quick.
Okay, blanket overview. Yes. Blanket overview. I think it's really interesting. We have Desmond Ridder starting, obviously, in a hashtag revenge spot against a Falcons defense that, I mean, man, they just got absolutely torched by Sam Darnold. It's going to be really interesting. Ridder, too, I mean, he gives us rushing upside. Caleb Williams and, the Bears. I thought the Bears were going to go into San Fran, and I thought that they were going to put up a bigger fight than what we saw. It was absolutely pathetic. You get more of a rivalry game here against the Vikings. The Vikings continue to be a pass funnel. I think matchup wise, it actually sets up decent for Caleb Williams and the passing options that he has. I think we're going to see a battle of a game. I kind of like the over in this one too. So I think that's going to be a really interesting spot in tournaments. And then, yeah, on the Raiders side, I mean, with Kirk Cousins, he's a statue. He can't move. We saw him under center more last week. There were moments where he looked good. Now, again, I played Kirk Cousins like a donkey in this revenge spot against his Vikings last week, and I should have played the other side of that game. Darnold obviously went off. There were times where Cousins looked good, and if with Crosby out, not having to deal with as much pressure, I don't know. I think you have competent receiving pieces there where they're going to be able to move the ball. Ray McLeod, I love what they're doing with him. I wish I would have went harder on him last week. Just these short passes over the middle. He's been awesome. So I think on the surface, it's going to be a fun slate. You can argue many different paths, which I think makes tonight's slate really interesting. And we have good receiver options on the slate. We have we have good tight end options as well. So it's going to come down to our combinations, how we're stacking it, what quarterbacks that we're prioritizing, because you can literally, in my opinion, you can make a case for all 4 quarterbacks. And that's not something that we've had in these 2-game slates throughout the season. Usually it's like, all right, we're not playing him. Terrible play. And so tonight, I do think quarterback ownership. Now, I haven't looked at ownership yet, ownership projections yet, but I do think it has to just spread out, which I think is awesome, because I'm going to definitely take some stands.
Yeah, I mean, you got some cheap options here. Desmond Ridder obviously filling in for the Raiders here with Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew out. These are what some of the top projected teams. So like we always say, we want to see what this blanket build kind of does, right? When we build out 5,000 teams, what's the top projected? What can we expect to see tonight? And you're right. It is Ridder. It might be the highest owned quarterback that we have here in our own builds. But ownership is pretty spread out at that position. The one thing I noticed, AP, was 100% Bijan. That kind of surprised me. It's no surprise to me that Jacoby Myers is all the way up here too. And I wonder how this Minnesota Vikings secondary kind of handles this Bears offense as well, because they didn't really handle it all that well a few weeks ago. But then again, it is a different situation. No Eberflus in there, but Thomas Brown was calling plays there at the time. I don't really know that we need to spend too much time. Do you want to go over any of these builds or any of these ownerships that you are happy with or shocked by?
So Desmond Ridder projected highest own. Is that what you're saying?
For us, right? So 38. We just do projected score. If you wanted to do, let me do this real fast. We're going to go ahead and take the lineups page out of the way here. We're going to go to ownership. And right now, Darnold, Cousins, Ridder, and then Caleb Williams will be the lowest end.
Gotcha. No, I think tonight's slate, if we go position by position on our script and we build out our script, I think that's going to be, because there are some true decisions that we have to make position by position. Just right off the top there, Bijan Robinson, mega chalk. I mean, he's going to be in a ton of lineups. Is there a path to get off of him? I mean, these are questions that, we're going to have to discuss and decide on. I mean, from a net perspective, when you're looking at like a flow chart type of matchup, I mean, Vegas actually has been pretty good against running backs over the last 5 games, and second toughest actually when you look at things from a net perspective. So that's going to be interesting with Bijan. Can Aaron Jones and some of these other options get there? I think from a lineup construction, I already know off the surface that I'm probably going to jam in 4 wide receivers. There are just so many good wide receivers on this slate. Again, that might be a very popular option. It might not be optimal. We got to see. But I know on the surface, that's kind of what I'm leaning.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's go ahead and dive into this slate then, AP. We're going to start with the quarterbacks here. Like we kind of mentioned earlier, you liked it. You alluded to it. You have Desmond Ridder. You have ownership that's going to be spread out, but a guy who can run, right? You have Caleb Williams, a guy who can run. And then you have 2 guys. Well, Kirk Cousins definitely can't run, and Sam Darnold's a part of the best offense in this game. How are we going to approach this quarterback position here? Because Desmond Ridder, you saw it in our base build, just projected score-wise, he hit a lot. Right? That doesn't mean, he's going to correlate with these sims and stuff when we actually do end up simming it. But it is one of the most interesting things to kind of consider when the cheapest guy is also one of our highest projected guys going into the slate. Caleb Williams, 16-7. I'm going to go ahead and give my take here real quick. He looked really bad last game. Like, it was kind of worrying, right? And this Bears team took a big step back with no Eberflus. And that's not to say that Eberflus was the reason or not. They were competitive in those games before. But that 49ers game was an embarrassment to the Bears. If they don't rebound today, like this season's already kind of chalked, but I'm going to put my money on Caleb Williams and Ritter here for the cheap options. And Kirk Cousins, he just looks so bad. I just think that these two guys have just as much upside as Cousins. I know that we have the options with the Falcons too in the receiving room with like London, you got Mooney, you got Pitts, but they just haven't been able to utilize it. Maybe the absence of Max Crosby could help that out. I do like just the rushing ability. The fact that I probably don't have to overstack them either. With Ritter, I probably don't need more than one or two guys. Same thing with Caleb Williams. I don't need more than one or two guys. The only guy I feel the need to overstack with is Darnold. And that's just because when he goes off, he goes off. And we just saw Brock Purdy tear this Bears team up. You know, if you're playing Darnold, well, Addison, Jefferson, Hawkinson all makes sense, right? That's not even to include, Aaron Jones or, hell, you throw a Naylor on a slate like this. Like, the only guy I feel the need to overstack with is Darnold, and that's why like Cousins is honestly the odd man out for me. What do you think, AP, that we should do with these projections?
So my thought here is initially I loved Ritter, cheap price tag in this hashtag revenge spot, rushing upside. But if that's going to be the popular path on what I feel is not a very good Raiders team. We see these Falcons games kind of play gross at times too, especially if they're leaning on Bijan. You got McCormick on the other side. It's a game that could just, end very quickly and be kind of boring. Whereas Caleb Williams, again, I get it. That next game, they go into San Francisco. They look terrible. I think in the second half, they looked a little bit better, which was encouraging. You got a young team, a youngish team, young quarterback, obviously led by a young quarterback. In just a weird situation. Defensively, they look terrible, which kind of makes sense. But Caleb Williams had his best game against this Minnesota team, almost 30 fantasy points, passed for 340 yards, 2 touchdowns. And on the other side, Sam Darnold in that same game in Chicago also threw for 300 plus yards. And now you have this point to where the Bears, like, I worry about the Bears defense. I think they have enough talent offensively to get it done against the Vikings, or at least to put up points to be fantasy viable. So I think that combination, the fact that they probably aren't going to stop Sam Darnold and the Vikings offense, and the fact that they do have weapons on the Chicago side and enough talent, I think, to make this game interesting. I think it makes for a fun game to kind of stack up. You have pieces on both sides that make a lot of sense. So if Ritter is going to be a popular quarterback option, or the most popular quarterback option, I would rather take a big stand on Caleb Williams stacks against the Vikings, because we just have so many different ways to stack this game up. And I think there's a lot of paths to where it ends up being kind of that nut game, that nut back and forth scoring type of game. We saw it already in Chicago. That game produced a lot of fantasy viability. It's Caleb Williams and his receiving options bounce back, and I think they can. You got Roman Dunze finally broke out, Keenan Allen, veteran on this team, and DJ Moore. I mean, from a Bears standpoint, this team with Caleb Williams, he still has stuff to prove. Obviously he's still learning, developing, and it's a rivalry divisional game. Like, I think these teams are going to battle, man. I think the Bears are not going to be able to stop the Vikings. And so I think the offense really needs to step up. So I like that. My stand would be Caleb Williams being under on Desmond Ritter, assuming he's going to be kind of that chalk quarterback. And then, obviously I don't mind Sam Darnold on the other side. Kirk Cousins, I don't know. I was wrong last week. I know that, like, it might be a better spot. Don't have to worry about Crosby and stuff, but they could just hand it off to Bijan, let him work, and it could be a boring game. So that's like the other part of it.
Yeah, I mean, these Falcons games haven't really been that boring, right? That's the one thing that you can kind of go into. I mean, sometimes they can be a little bit of a slogfest, but most of the time they have been, worth the price of admission, right? Especially for fantasy. This is the one thing. Like, I didn't mean like Ritter is going to be the most popular option. This like for us in the projected score, it was kind of why. Could he come in north of this 20%? Yeah, it's questionable, right? Like it's something that if he did, he's probably a little bit lesser of a play, like you were talking about. But if he doesn't, like, still a good environment. He's got a very clear target funnel. It is one of those things where we could even leave him at his original projection just to say we're kind of neutral on him, and I'm fine at wherever we get on Ritter. I know the one guy that I want to sell is kind of similar to you, his Cousins, but Caleb Williams we're going to be over on. Darnold, hopefully that. We're kind of even with the field, maybe a little less than that too. We actually, I don't really know what the Darnold situation is going to look like. I know that in the base build, he was hitting a lot with Hawkinson a little bit there too. So it's going to be an interesting path that we follow tonight, AP. I know Caleb Williams, you're exactly right. His best game was against this Vikings team. It was great to see Keenan Allen absolutely went off. You also had DJ Moore do really well. This is an important game for them. I know it's going into Minnesota. It's against the grain, but it's a primetime football game to kind of show we're not as big of a joke as we looked last week. We're not as big of a joke as Eberflus, had us look on Thanksgiving. Like, this is a halfway decent football team, and hopefully they prove it tonight. Let's move on to running backs here. The big thing with Las Vegas, McCormick is now RB1, even with Madison back in the mix. You also have DeAndre Swift, who's with a questionable tag. No Roshan Johnson either. So the guy who is filling in that role has been Travis Homer. But I think Travis Homer got hurt himself. Let me go ahead and just check that here real quick here for you. AP, real quick, what's your take on this running back situation here? I know that the Vikings have been a pass funnel all year. DeAndre Swift has been a little bit involved in the passing game, but overall, this is a slate where it's just dominated by two guys. And a reason why Bijan is projected for above 70% ownership is because the rest of the options are kind of mediocre.
Yeah, so when looking at matchups and looking at recent data, last 5 games, the Bears have just you've been able to run all over them. We saw it last week, obviously, out in San Francisco. They ranked dead last over the last 5 games. They're giving up a lot of production, just straight rushing, and then also receiving out of the backfield. And look, like we've seen them use Aaron Jones out of the backfield more too. Aaron Jones also had he had one of his best games a few weeks ago against the same Bears team, averaged almost 5 yards per carry. He had 25 total touches. He just eclipsed 100 yards. He had a rushing touchdown in that game, and he had some receiving yards too. So we've seen it. Like, what's he had? I think 10 targets over the last 3 games. I think that continues. I know he's had some red zone targets too, where drop balls in the red zone. I think 2 of them, if my memory serves me correct, over the last 3 weeks. So the opportunity's there. Aaron Jones, definitely one of my favorite running backs. And again, I see myself making some huge stands at the running back spot. Like, I think going back to quarterback, I could definitely see myself removing Cousins from the pool and then taking a big stand maybe on Caleb and then having sprinkles of Darnold and Ritter. I could see my stand. I could see myself doing that in 150 tonight. At the running back spot, I might just have to go all in on a couple spots. And right out of the gate, like Aaron Jones feels like one of the spots to go all in. I've heard some chatter about Cam Akers maybe getting goal line carries. That is a possibility. I get it. But I almost think it's with the running backs on the slate, I might have like a 3 running back type pool. Like, it could be Aaron Jones, Bijan Robinson, and Sincere McCormick is kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of a way to get different tonight, right? Like, Bijan and Aaron Jones are obviously 2 great plays. Sincere McCormick's going to be a decent play at 5,100, probably your best value option. You have to ask yourself, like, what could hit that's unique? And, like, I'm trying to think of paths for these guys. Like, with Algier, his path is very simple, right? He gets a drive where he spells Bijan, scores on it, 12 fantasy points at 4,400. Can that be enough? Yes. Is that a good point here? Someone mentioned it. 3 running back option seems viable to get away from the double tight end chalk. Like Josh D was mentioning, that's being a chalky option as well. Like, this is an interesting one too, where you just look at it that way. I kind of like the idea of maybe going like an Algier, maybe going in Akers over some of these chalky tight ends who are going to be in that 4K range. Like, I'll just go ahead and click over here, like Kyle Pitts, Cole Kmet, TJ Hawkinson, right? Like, not that these guys are going to be crazy high owned or whatever, but like, right, I'd rather have those guys. Let's go to the wide receivers too. Like, the low 4K options, like Ray McLeod's going to be about 20%. Can one of these running backs get there? And I think the answer is yes, AP. Like, not that you want to just go crazy with it in single entry and stuff, but if you ask me between Akers, Algier, and hell, let's just throw in Travis Homer there too, just because his involvement in the passing game could be significant. Yeah, I think one of those guys have a chance to kind of turn the slate on its head at fairly low ownership, teen ownership or lower. 13, 7, and hell, 0 for Travis Homer. This is going to be an interesting one. So, like, McCormick's, we have a very clear top 3, I think. And I don't like Swift at all. This is a terrible matchup for Swift. Selling on him, I think you're in agreement, right?
Yeah. And a quick point, like, this comes from what you were just saying. Think about the Falcons last week. They're down by double digits most of the game. I mean, they kept it close early, but when you look at the running back touches, they had 34, I think, total running back touches in a negative game script. I mean, they were still feeding Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, who had nine total touches and got in the box. And he looked impressive running the ball. So if it's a spot where the Falcons look good and maybe take it to the Raiders, yeah, you could see past where both running backs get there potentially. So I don't.
The thought of stacking them, like the AP, like, it's not that bad of an idea. It's just really not. And on a slate where the 4K values are pretty mediocre, right? Like, look at this, wide receiver wise. Like, you have to go into the 5K range to get that. A 10, 11 point fantasy performance could be enough from Algier, and you compare it with the 23 from Bijan. It's not out of any realm of possibility.
What do you argue kind of the projected script that we're talking through right now, and we're assuming it's a big if, but if the Bears and Caleb Williams can keep this game exciting, it has to come through Caleb Williams and his receiving options. Like, we just don't see DeAndre Swift getting there. Travis Homer, like, this rushing game it's been terrible. I mean, would you agree with that? True, not true? I mean, if that's the case, then it's Aaron Jones, Bijan Robinson, maybe Tyler Algier, and then Sincere McCormick. Like, those are kind of our options, right?
I mean, he's ripped off a couple big runs, and that's about it. Like, you look at what he has done in the passing game, it's promising. This DeAndre Swift I'm talking about here. Like, he just isn't hit. He sucks. I mean, like, he'll score tonight now that I say that. But, like, DeAndre Swift, also banged up coming into this one. Yards per game is absolutely awful, but it's also his advanced stats too. Like, he's like one of the worst running backs in rushing yards ever expected. Like, it is just a terrible spot too. Like, last time against the Vikings, he had 13 carries for 30 yards. He only had 3 receptions for 35 yards. Did absolutely nothing. Again, it's a small slate. It's a 2-game slate. So, like, the last thing I want to do is completely dismiss anyone scoring a touchdown. But Swift is by far my least favorite guy, and I would rather go many other ways than him, especially being banged up. Like, Travis Homer could come in, signify a pretty decent, workload from him, especially in the passing game. It's just something to consider here as well. We also, I like this one. We didn't get the primetime Kirk yet. That's funny. Primetime Kirk, you're right. We sell on him. We buy the running backs. That would be a good one. But yeah, my overall stand, I think Algier might be one of my favorite plays here tonight, AP. And I never usually say that, but I do want to get a little bit funky on a slate, like a 2-gamer tonight, where, good plays are obvious, I think, but the sneaky ones are the ones that we want to get on before the field does.
The counter argument to that is when you look at the pool of wide receivers, there are a lot of options and a lot of routes to where these wide receivers could find themselves in an optimal type of situation. And the larger the pool, the more combinations that we have. And so, like, my thought on taking like a stand on 2 running backs, maybe 3, is it allows me to then mix and match these different 4 wide receiver combinations. If I go all in on that 4 wide receiver route, I'm just looking at this pool: DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, JJ, Addison, who's been a beast. You have the 3 wide receivers. Any one of them could pop in Atlanta. And then you got the target monster that's Jacoby Myers, and obviously Brock Bowers, who's basically a wide receiver. So I don't know. I'm really torn, and I don't want to like control it too much. I want the numbers to be right, and then let the optimizer, let SaberSim do its thing. But that's kind of on the surface. The reason that I might take a few more stands at the running back spot.
Yeah, no, I like that there, AP. Let's talk about wide receivers and tight ends. This is what I did. I grouped the tight ends together with the wide receivers, and we're going to go team by team, okay? So we'll go team by team for wide receivers, kind of go over each one, who we like, who we dislike, and then we'll wrap it up then and get to business with the Sims. So AP, Bears first. We talked about how you like Caleb Williams, how I like Caleb Williams. Keenan Allen has been his guy in recent weeks. DJ Moore has been the second. And then Rome Odunze, kind of the man left behind until catching a late touchdown last week? Is that what he did? So what do you see with this Bears wide receiver room and also Cole Kmet?
So it is actually the second best spot on this slate when you're looking at recent data, last 5 games, and I'm using net. So we're adjusting for matchups. But still, once you do that, the Vikings rank 31st. Allowing a pretty insane, almost 48 fantasy points per game to opposing receivers, 225 receiving yards on average allowed last 5 games, like over a touchdown and a half as well. So DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, you have kind of the clear 3 there that are going to soak up a lot of the work. It was DJ Moore and Keenan Allen that produced in this matchup last time. My question is like, can we how creative can we get with the stack? Because that's the other path on this slate. Like, let's just say you eat the Bijan chalk, you eat the Aaron Jones chalk. Can you go like a Caleb Williams +2, +3? I think it might be a little thin. I think +2 is definitely on the table. But those are the questions that I'll be asking myself as we're going to lock, because I think that's where it gets really interesting. But you need that back and forth environment. And Vegas obviously disagrees with me, and Vegas is usually right. So, I'll have to temper that a little bit with the implied 18.5 point total. But if you get that, if they score 25, the 25-28 range, and you get the production on the Viking side, which kind of goes way outside what Vegas is thinking, It becomes interesting at these price points. So I do like DJ Moore. I do like Keenan Allen and Roman Dunze. I have like confidence on who's going to be the guy? I mean, I don't. And so that's where it's a mixing and matching type of game for me. I think I would lead on the Keenan Allen, DJ Moore side, and then sprinkle in Roman Dunze. But again, I think this trio of receivers, if you're high on Caleb Williams, is going to be in a great spot, and the opportunity is going to be there, especially when you look at the Vikings recently. They've just been a complete pass funnel. I mean, Cousins is Cousins. He had some good throws last week, and then he had some just terrible throws as well. So, I like this trio of receivers, though.
Yeah, I like this trio of receivers as well. Like buying in the pass game in general. The big thing to note, as Lee Price just mentioned, right? DJ Moore is the guy who, is the alpha in this room. Keenan Allen has been great over the last few weeks. I know last week is his worst game. What was it, 3 for 30? But expect him to bounce back. Odunze's targets have been very solid, very promising. But the production hasn't. And this is a good slate at 16% ownership, potentially maybe under 20% ownership of getting kind of his look back. Like the upside's there. 5,300, not a bad tag at all. I do agree with you there. Let's move on to the Vikings. Jordan Addison, the man of the hour last week. Absolutely unreal performance from start to finish. You also have Justin Jefferson, who also went off with him. I think they combined for 4 touchdowns there. Hawkinson, the safety valve underneath at 4,800. AP, I looked at this, and honestly, I kind of want to sell on Hawkinson a tad, right? I know that the Bears defense is not great. We don't want to get too crazy with, bumping any Minnesota guys down, but Hawkinson seems a little high for me at 11.5. And someone that I've seen him get scripted out of games in a sense. And I know he killed the Bears last time, but a lot of that production came in the final moments of the game. I think he had only 32 receiving yards coming into 57 minutes of that game, right? And I know you can't just disregard, the last part of a game or whatever, but it wasn't like he was going off against the Bears until that fourth quarter, last-minute drive, or until the last drive in the fourth quarter for them, which I think was about 6 or 7 minutes left in the game. And then the overtime, he also did really well in. So he was limited against the Bears until, obviously, the game got really good there. I think these guys are just an indifferent room for me, AP. Like, I'm fine if I get him. I'm fine if I don't. The only guy I really want to sell on is Hawkinson. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying. I think for me, what I'm going to do at the tight end spot is potentially eliminate double tight end builds, especially if that's going to be popular, and then not really fade any one of them. I mean, Kyle Pitts might be the guy I fade, but Hawkinson, I think will make my pool. The matchup seems fine. Really interested to see how Brock Bowers. I need Brock Bowers. I need a absolute nuke of a game to advance in best ball.
Oh yeah,
from Brock Bowers. I mean, my team seemed like any other week. That team is probably advancing. It was a very, very good team, but yesterday was absolutely wild, and that's kind of how it goes. But I get it, but TJ Hawkinson, I think he's definitely going to be someone that I'm high on. The thing about the Vikings side, they do have a lot of mouths to feed. So I do wonder. The theme about Chicago, they've been very good against wide receiver ones. Now you could argue last week is Debo. Is he really, like, when you just categorize it, I would argue that Jennings is probably the wide receiver one and he nuked. Yeah. But going back to it was Jordan Addison who had a monster game. Christian Watson had a monster game. And then, Jennings obviously last week. I think with kind of the breakdown, like the coaching issues and just how bad we saw them defensively, is this time where they just let Justin Jefferson shine? I mean, Jordan Addison has been the guy. He's gotten an insane amount of target. Like, he's out producing Justin Jefferson over this last stretch, and Sam Darnold continues to look his way. Do we see that switch? We saw a breakout game last week for Justin Jefferson. Do they just pepper him? Is this the week we finally see a ton of targets? I don't know. It could definitely happen. I'm not saying fade Jordan Addison. Not what I'm saying at all. It's really interesting. And one, impressive what Jordan Addison is doing. But two, it's teams are scheming Justin Jefferson away. Now you're starting to see, like, that hasn't worked. If you do that, Jordan Addison's just gonna. I mean, the dude's incredible. So they got to change something up if you're the Bears. And I could just see it being a monster Justin Jefferson game, ownership wise. And again, let me pull up some projections. But is JJ getting a lot of projected ownership? Drake London always is chalk. It just blows my mind.
47% for Justin Jefferson right now, according to Saber. So that seems right.
Around the industry, I'm seeing a little less than that. I'm seeing like in the 30s, upper 30s, but in the 30s. And on a 2-game slate, it's kind of wild. Like yesterday, I took a big stand on Monroe St. Brown. He's one of my highest owned wide receivers. And I took a big stand on fading Chase, who was mega chalk, and a few other receivers just to get that stand on Amon-Ra St. Brown. This is definitely a 2-game slate. I could take a big stand on Justin Jefferson, banking on hopefully he's that optimal guy. And I see him, last week's performance, I think it rolls over, and I think he has a big game against the Bears. So I'm definitely going to be higher on JJ, and then hopefully some of those Bears run back can get it done for me.
I like it. So you like these projections here? Anyone that you disagree on, or should I change?
No, I mean, I'm higher on this game, so I'm probably going to be getting even more aggressive on these. What do we do with the Bears side? We
bumped up almost all the Bears basically. Okay. Not a ton. Like, I just kind of showed I bumped them. Like, Odunze got like a 0.01 bump. Kemet got like a 0.1 bump, but the other two, Moore and Keenan Allen, got like a half point or a 3/4 of a point bump.
Gotcha. No, I like that. I think that's perfect. As long as JJ's our highest projected guy, that's kind of my end goal.
Perfect. All right, Falcons. Kyle Pitts has been not used. He's just not getting the ball here. Drake London's targets have been there. However, Kirk Cousins doesn't get him the ball where he needs to be. It seems like a lot of these are just in the area, but not necessarily, toward Drake London. So the targets are way up. However, it is just concerning every time I look up the screen, I play Drake London, the ball's going over his head or at his feet. Hopefully that changes today. You're exactly right. He is mega chalk. You have Darnell Mooney has looked great on the big plays as well. I like the Falcons a little bit. I don't really love Kirk Cousins, though, so I don't want to get crazy with them. I mean, the thing with Drake London, he's safe, right? Like, the 16.5 projection's fine. He is going to be a safe option. He's going to get a lot of targets. Maybe I'll turn those targets into fantasy points. Who knows? Probably will. But Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod, Kyle Pitts, these are three guys where I honestly think, a little high projected, right? Like, and I love Darnell Mooney. However, 12.3 is pretty high. Ray McLeod has done really well in these games, but he can get phased out of games as well. You look at Kyle Pitts, hasn't been getting the ball at all. If you look at Kyle Pitts over his last 6-7 games or whatever, he's been absolutely horrendous. He had 1 catch for 14 yards, 0 catches for 0 yards, 1 catch for 9 yards. It's just concerning with how he's being utilized. It's almost like he's a complete afterthought at this point. What's your take on this receiving and tight end room here, AP?
Yeah, I mean, we have 2 weeks in a row now where Ray McLeod was just a few yards shy of that 100-yard bonus, no touchdowns as well. So just imagine that. A few more, let's just say Ray McLeod last 2 weeks hits the 100-yard. He was 5 yards from it and 2 yards from it. And let's just say he gets in the box. I mean, that's 2 massive scores that he's put up in back-to-back weeks. I think he ends up in that scenario. He's by far the most popular option on the slate. And now he's like trailing in ownership projection, Drake London and Darnell Mooney. What they're doing with Ray McLeod right now, I really like. He's like the ultimate safety valve for Kirk Cousins. He's the easy outlet. They're these crossing patterns, these short dump offs, and then he's just been excellent at yards after the catch as well. So I like the idea of bumping down. Drake London going to be chalk. We're under on Cousins. I like the idea of bumping him down and then slightly bumping up Mooney and then being a little bit more aggressive on Ray McLeod. I just love how they're utilizing him right now. And then for me, like Mooney's, he's got all the his upside, in my opinion, is somewhat similar to London. I'm not going to say it's like the same. London, obviously, wide receiver 1 is the guy that, could break a slate out of all of these three, but really on the surface, a lot of mouths to feed with all three of them too. So if the field's going to be over on London, it's a guy I don't mind making like an under stance on. So I'm going to definitely be under on his projection. I'm going to be quite a bit under where where Saber currently has him projected, and I'm going to be bumping up Ray, and then slightly bumping up Mooney.
All right, so I like the London call. Right, I'll bump him down. All right, I like the Ray call too. I'll bump him up. He got a lot of targets last week as well. The big thing with him, you're exactly right. There's the routes over the middle. He's become much more than just a return guy when he was in San Francisco. He's been a legitimate wide receiver this year. Darnell Mooney, I'm going to push slightly back on just because he does have a floor, right? And we are buying Algier. We are buying Bijan in that sense. And Darnell Mooney looked great last week, had a big play against the Vikings, right? He did really well against the Vikings in that sense. But you look at the Chargers game, 3 for 20. You look at the Broncos game, 2 for 27. Like, his floor is really low. He does have the same upside, though. I agree. I think he has the same upside as London. I think you're exactly right in that regard. Like, he does have some insane ability to kind of get there. I think the Sims will kind of bake that in. But he's not a guy that I just want to get extremely high on, especially when I want to see some of these Algier or Bijan stacks come through, especially when I'm selling on Kirk Cousins a little bit. I want to see what the Sims give us when we're selling on almost all this Falcons passing game, except for one, Ray McLeod, who I like that call a lot. But Darnell Mooney, we won't bump him down too low. I think his projection was 12.3. Just to signify the sell, I'll do 12.29, but it shouldn't affect the Sims much at all. Let's move on to the Raiders here. This one's big too because we got 2 tight ends. 2 tight ends who Michael Mayer was the guy who led this receiving room last week, which shocked me, right? I had Brock Bowers overs, and he ended up doing absolutely nothing. And it was Michael Mayer who ended up leading the receiving room. I think he had like 6 or 7 catches, it felt like. This is kind of crazy, AP. Like, we have a very, very clear funnel of targets. Bowers and Myers should lead the room. But you also have guys like Michael Mayer and Trey Tucker are going to interfere just slightly, right? What's your take on this receiving room? I mean, it's a great spot for these guys. Look at the ownership, too. I mean, my goodness, Brock Bowers and Jacoby Myers both projected for north of 50%. Seems right. What's your plan?
Yeah, I mean, it obviously grades out at the top flowchart spot. I mean, if you're looking at data, last 5 games, it's just one step above the Vikings that we talked about. I mean, a massive 52 fantasy points per game allowed to opposing receiver cores. Just absolutely massive numbers. When you think about back to last week, there was two huge breakdowns in coverage. One of them, obviously, if you watched the red zone or the game, was to Justin Jefferson, where Sam Darnold just like threw it up. But he had another one to Jordan Addison. So like my thought is like, we haven't seen Desmond Ridder in a while. He obviously played a little bit last week in what was a good spot for the time that he was in there against Tampa Bay. Another pass funnel. He was I think 12 for 18. So it's going to be interesting. Can he come into this game and light it up through the air? I'm a little hesitant on that. I think what we see is him use his legs more, which again makes him viable fantasy wise. But can we be very bullish on Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers? I mean, it's a bet on talent with those guys. If you get good passes from Ridder, then it could definitely happen. I don't know if I feel as confident in this spot as I do, say, Caleb Williams, because at least with Caleb Williams, we're to that level. Like there's been enough games, enough, playing with these guys to build that rapport up with his weapons. So I'm a little skeptical. I'm maybe going to be a little bit more cautious than, say, the field on the skill position players here, even though the matchup is as good as it gets.
Yeah, the matchup is as good as it gets. One thing to note, I believe Trey Tucker and Desmond Ridder were part of that UC University of Cincinnati playoff run. So they do have a little bit of rapport in that regard, I believe. So this is one thing to note. Trey Tucker does play a ton of snaps and stuff, so I don't mind buying on him, playing a little bit of that narrative at 4,100. Had a couple catches last week, but we've also seen him have 7 catches in games 3 weeks
I like
ago.
that. Dude, Rubio, I love that call. I would bump him up even a little more. I think that's a great.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that I don't know. It's probably not a huge deal, right? But at the same time, I do like baking that stuff in when these guys were, in college together and ended up making that run where they played Bama in the playoff. This is a team that I like to buy on them, maybe, but like at the same time, like, look, I think if you didn't buy on them, like I didn't bump them up very high at all. But you're right, the matchup is just so elite, right? Like, it is one of the best matchups in the game. With Trey Tucker, we're not bumping up too much. Michael Mayer went for 7 for 60 last week. Like, if they throw the ball, it's very clear who's going to get the ball, right? Like, Mayer and Tucker are just ancillary pieces. But if they have to throw the ball, Myers and Bowers are both just insane. The question is, do the Sims like them? We'll get to that here in just a second. Defenses, I'm just going to show you the projections here. I think I screwed up somewhere. Let me go ahead and do this. And defenses, and I probably have a search in here as well. There it is. Okay. So let's get the defenses here, AP, and then we're going to run the Sims. I mean, do these look good here? Vikings number 1, Falcons 2, Bears 3, Raiders 4. Any changes that you want to make?
Yeah, I mean, you can honestly make a case for a lot of these defenses. I mean, Kirk Cousins has been a turnover machine of late. Obviously, the Raiders, though, it's a tough spot. They're home dogs. The Vikings, yeah, they feel great against Caleb. I know we like Caleb Williams, but again, I'm fine playing the Vikings defense against my Caleb Williams stacks. I'm perfectly fine for that. If the Vikings get a pick 6, it's just a nut spot. Like, it's an absolute nut spot because it's more opportunity for Caleb Williams. And it's only like a -1 point hit to him. Like, I'll take that all day. So I'm perfectly fine with those. I'm going to get pretty creative at the defensive spot, probably mix and match a bunch of different ones. I don't have a bold stand on any of them. I might look at ownership as we approach lock and kind of go inverse the chalky plays.
Yep, I think that you will have Ridder, who has been very prone to turnovers in the past. So I don't mind going the Falcons defense even against Ridder. It's a very interesting topic. I think those kind of correlate more than people think. You have Algier, Bijan, and then you play the Falcons defense, and then just run a massive Raider stack against it. It's not as stupid as it may seem on paper, right? Like where I don't want to play guys against my defense stuff, but more possessions leads to more fantasy points, a better script, and we know Ritter's priced the cheapest on the slate. And like you said with Caleb Williams playing the Vikings defense against him, like it's a correlation breaker in a sense. Not a lot of people do it, but I'm not going to say it correlates completely, but at the same time, it definitely doesn't hurt your correlation, a pick 6 or a turnover deep in their own territory. All right, AP, I'm going to run the contest sim for the main 500K to first contest tonight. I know that we want to get out of here in a few minutes, but we'll go ahead and run this contest sim. Any shows on later today? I know we have the Showdown Kings show at 2. We have the Print Factory at 3:30, I believe. And then we will have the NBA show tonight with a full NBA slate for one of the last times this week before we have the NBA Cup final tomorrow and then a day off later in the week as well.
Yes, sir. Busy day. You guys are stuck with me again later. What time is that? 6 p.m. 6 p.m. Eastern. We'll meet DC and I will be back to dial in the NBA slate tonight. I think Mangone is traveling, so no Mangone on that show. But yeah, DC. We'll get the NBA slate dialed. 6 games tonight. Looks really good on the surface. Kind of did an initial preview there. Flow chart's already up if you're a Rumpier Sports member.
Perfect. All right, let's go to the ROI wheel. And we get Bijan 85%, seems right. Aaron Jones 75%. And here is our top team, AP. It's a three-man stack.
I like it.
Except
for we don't have Justin Jefferson, but I like. Can you show me one Justin Jefferson build before we get out of here?
Right there.
Okay, but it has no Bears.
No Bears. Let's go ahead and just zoom in on Justin Jefferson here. Here's a Bear. You get Keenan Allen in there with Sam Darnold. You get Bijan and Aaron Jones. Those are our top two guys. You get a Mayer in the flex. So 3K tight end there. Hockenson, despite bumping him down, is going to hit a lot of these Justin Jefferson teams. You know why? Because it's an overstack with Sam Darnold. Here's one with a run back of Caleb Williams, DJ Moore, Keenan Allen with Cole Kmet in there. This one I actually kind of like quite a bit with Jacoby Myers, Sincere McCormick as well. Kind of a different look than what we've seen with the Jones stacks. Swift, this is another one too. Let's go ahead and just highlight another player because we haven't seen a Brock Bowers one.
Double tight end is going to be popular. I think that's going to be my stand. I think I'm going to go all in on 4 wide receiver. There's so many good wide receiver plays. Get a Trey Tucker in there with Ray McLeod and then load up on some good wide receivers in the first game.
In our top 20 lineups, AP, we don't get a ton of Brock Bowers. This is the one spot that we get in where it's not the flex, but it's the tight end position here. Caleb Williams with Aaron Jones, Sincere McCormick, Addison. So this is one without Bijan. What it does is gets you Drake London as well. This is an interesting build. I'm not sure if I love it, but this build makes a lot of sense. You're getting off the chalk Bijan. You're getting a double stack with Caleb Williams. You're getting the run back with Addison and Aaron Jones. Like, this is a lineup that is sensible. It's very sensible and one that I can kind of see. Last thing, AP, I know that we want to get out of here and stuff, but I want to check some Desmond Ridder teams real quick. Ridder with Jones, Bijan, London. This one's great. Mayer and Bowers. A double Raiders tight end stack is very, very interesting, along with Myers. Bowers with Tucker, Myers as well. Let's see if we get any Bears in any of these here too. Oh, yeah. I mean, I'm not even a Hockenson fan, but this one kind of makes a lot of sense too if you want to get a little bit unique.
You want to know, I think the way to play Ridder, if you are playing him, is limit your overstacking. Like, I just don't see it being a spot where like overstacks with him get it done. I see it being him rushing like 2 rushing touchdowns, using his legs where he's putting up a performance that's close enough to the other quarterbacks, and the salary savings that it gives you allows you to spend up for better positions. So the opportunity cost there and savings kind of elevates that. Like, so that's how I would play Desmond Ridder. I'd create a group. How would you do that? And if then group, like saying if he's in there, you're limiting to one of then all the skill position players. That's probably the best way to do it.
Even doing your team stacks and stuff too, to where you could limit like a 4 stack or a 3 stack and stuff too. Like, you could just limit it, no 4 stacks, 5 or 6 stacks, right? Like, so it's just 3 mans, which I think would be great. Let's go ahead and get into our plays of the day. This is also very interesting for Antoine Murphy, like talking about Cole Kmet. Back-to-back really bad matchups for him. The Lions matchup being more man, and so are the 49ers. So this is a much better situation for him. Not that the Vikings run a lot less man or anything like that, but they do blitz a lot, which does lead to Caleb Williams checking it down. I actually don't hate that call at all. But AP, best play on the slate for you tonight. Who's the most important guy for you?
Yeah, so my favorite play or best play, can I take a quarterback?
Oh, 100%.
I'm just going to say Caleb Williams. Caleb Williams stacks. We'll go Caleb Williams to DJ Moore. That's going to be my favorite combo.
Yeah, I like it. And look at our guy Deegs. I love this little info here as well. So you got Caleb Williams, your guy. One of the best strategies this year has been playing 2 pass catchers from the same team, but not the QB. And it won the Thanksgiving slate, which was a small sample size, and then a Week 7 2-game slate and multiple millies, including yesterday. Yes, Sean Smith. Didn't he get that with Amon-Ra? Or no, it wasn't Amon-Ra. He had Jared Goff. That's what it was.
Let's take it a step further. Double that tonight. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, Desmond Ritter, quarterback. There you go.
I like it. I like it.
Double plays on that.
I think best play. I would kind of lean Jacoby Myers, right? Like I think that he might be one of my favorite plays tonight. However, if I want to give a unique one, I do think Trey Tucker has a big play in him tonight, and one of my favorite under the radar ones, and someone to get a little bit unique with if you are playing a guy like Ritter and don't want to follow the typical chalky stack of Ritter, Bowers, and Myers. Maybe get a little unique with Tucker or just Meyer in general. All right, so thank you for AP. For I have a great rest of y'all
Who
today.
says Caleb's in the absolute cheek spot? Oh. Caleb's not in the absolute.
Strange for our guy Sean Smith. Cheek spot. Did
no,
Tony put
dude? Oh, he's got it. Tony, you got to redo your numbers. Like, there's no way. There's absolutely no way. Everything I'm looking at right now, Vikings clear pass funnel, just like the Chiefs yesterday. Like those games suck. Like,
hey, put him in the absolute cheek spot. I disagree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah, I 100% disagree with that.
Yeah. Okay. For AP, for I, have a great rest of y'all's day and good luck. Hopefully that one of y'all are splitting the 500K or just winning it solo tonight. Bye-bye.